I don't know if you can all hear me. Not everybody hear me? Those of you who actually know me know how when I start to tell a story, I have a tendency to ramble on, so I'll stick to prepared script. Since Terry told me to keep this under an hour as well, we'll have to leave out volume 1, 2. But we can, if anybody wants to read it, we can get back to it later. Just before I get to my story, just a quick word about the weather out here. Just remember, you don't get to choose the weather, but you do get to choose how you deal with it. So, you know, that basement room that my wife has budgeted me to get cleaned out, it's done. I just have to put everything back in there after it all dries out. So, but I know it's early, so I'll give you this thought. Think this over a little bit. Some of you guys are pretty sharp and might get this. But to the lobsters who were waiting in the kitchen on the Titanic, that iceberg was a miracle. So good morning and welcome to the Hope Walk and Survivors Breakfast. My name is Wayne and I am a survivor. I want to thank Carrie here at the Cancer Center for giving me the opportunity to share some of my story with you. I also want to thank everyone in the entire Margaret Mary Health System for everything they do to make hope possible in this fight against cancer. When Carrie asked me if I would share some of my story, I said I would be honored to do so. I told my wife, Vicki, that she's right there.
Stop.
Say hi. I told my wife, Vicki, that I would be speaking here this morning, and her first response was, I hope you don't wait until the last minute to figure out what you're going to talk about. I said, I hope you aren't going to nag me about this until September 10th. Well, she said, I hope you realize I'm always right. And yes, I do. I realize that. Now you're always right. So I hope everybody sees where I'm going with this. Let's talk about hope for a bit. Hope can be huge, like hoping for world peace. And hope can be small, like hoping you get to sleep in for an extra 10 minutes. But we learn at a very young age not to use hope for the wrong things. If you use hope the way you're not supposed to be using it, you get a visit from hope's distant cousin, karma. You know, like when you're 7 years old and you throw a rock at that other group of kids and you're just hoping you'll hit one of them right in the face. Well, you miss. They pick up the rock and they throw it back. Karma steps in and you get a rock right in the face. Right there. And you get stitches and you get a scar. That's what happens when you don't use hope the way you're supposed to use it. Those of us here this morning have a very special relationship with hope. From the time we hear those words, you have cancer, hope becomes part of a journey. Hope is something that we use to move forward in this journey. Sometimes we move at a run, and sometimes we move forward at a crawl. Sometimes we move forward with hope at a walk and a survivor's breakfast. But we move forward. When we are a loved one who sees the news of cancer, we begin our journey much the same way. I hope everything is going to be okay, and I hope there's something that they can do. And so we begin our journey separately, and yet we are all bound together by this common, powerful thread of hope. In 2012, my dad came for a visit, and in the evening we took the dogs for a walk. He told me he had stage 4 lung cancer from asbestos exposure. Working at the mills and being in the Navy during Vietnam, he had been exposed to asbestos. As he told me about it, he said the doctors had given him 4 to 6 months to live. And I remember looking at him and saying, I hope it's longer than that. Well, he just laughed, said, I hope so too. He had chemo, and his family and friends hoped for him. He turned to his list. He had one of those bucket lists, things he wanted to do. So my dad and my mom, she's sitting right there, say hi, Mom. They took their little dog Maggie and they set out on their journey of hope. He went for well over a year, and it was a year of life and laughter and love and tears, but it was a year of hope. Then I got the call early one morning that hope for my dad run out. His journey had ended. But as the days passed, I realized that his hopes lived in me. My hopes are much the same as his. I hope for great things for my kids. I hope that I show my wife every day in my words and deeds how much I love her and how special she is. And so I took my dad's hope and I moved forward, keeping his hopes and memories alive with mine. A little over 2 years ago, Amy Hummel, over at the Batesville Casket Health and Wellness Center, she was a little put out with me. I had turned 50 and I had not yet gone in for my routine colonoscopy. Amy told me, I hope you get it done, or I'll let your wife know that you won't get with the program. Well, I scheduled my screening with Dr. Gears. And after a routine colonoscopy, I heard those words, "You have cancer." My wife sat next to me as I pondered the news. I looked at Dr. Gears and I said, okay, what now? My wife and I started our journey of hope. Dr. Gears said he would perform the surgery to remove the tumor and then send me to Dr. Cooper if needed for chemotherapy in hopes that we would get it all. Dr. Cooper and everyone at Margaret Mary Health did a great job of putting me back together, providing me with the strength and healing to move forward in my journey. My colon cancer had turned out to be stage 3 and I needed that chemotherapy. Excuse me for a second, because this drives me crazy. Well, I came to Dr. Cooper and the staff here. And there's a lot of those stories about everyone here at the staff, because I love all of you so much. I come in, I see all of them hugging, they're like, you need to get down there and get your chemo done. Well, I came here to Dr. Cooper and his staff, and I quickly realized that this is a place of immense hope and immense healing. Dr. Cooper chartered our course that we would take on our journey. At the start, we hit some pretty rough seas, didn't we, Dr. Cooper? It was a little bit bumpy, but Dr. Cooper quickly righted the ship. Those Navy references are a shout out to my friend Bruce. He's right over there. Bruce is retired Navy senior chief. Raise your hand again, Bruce, so everybody can see who you are. Okay. Bruce and his family are very much a part of my journey, and their daughter Amanda is a survivor as well. She couldn't be here this morning, but she is a young woman full of grace, courage, and hope. Anyway, a little over a year ago, I was almost done with my chemo, and things were running pretty smooth. Dr. Cooper had us charted right, and the staff here was doing everything that needed to be done. I found out that my younger brother had been admitted to the hospital in Las Vegas. He had encephalitis, which is a swelling of the brain. Well, after treatment and further testing, they diagnosed him with stage 4 brain cancer. They told us the cancer was very aggressive and his journey was not going to be a long one. The doctor said that they would do radiation and chemo in hopes of slowing down the cancer, and they were using one of those investigative drugs that had shown some promise in slowing these types of things. And we began to hope. His cancer is one of these cancers that affects those areas of the brain that control your emotion and your speech and things like that. So his personality became very angry and bitter and combative, argumentative, and very difficult to deal with. Anyway, it's been over a year since his diagnosis, and we still hope. Last month, my mom told me that he was not doing well, so I jumped on a plane and headed to Vegas. He was sleeping 23 hours a day and had a constant headache. Well, believe it or not, I solved the pharmacy mix-up, got him back on the right medication and back on his feet. He was awake 23 hours a day now and only sleeping 1. It was crazy. But that was due to the powerful steroid that he was on. It kept him up and moving all the time. He was back on his feet, but each and every single moment was exhausting. It was an angry battle. Every interaction you had with him was an angry, exhausting argument. But I could see how much he appreciated me being there for him because we're brothers. So you can see these things. This journey of hope for my brother and those around him has been very difficult. After I had been there for 4 to 5 days, we had an extremely long day in the sun, in the oppressive heat of the desert there in Vegas. But night had come, and we were sitting outside, and it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. We just sat there in silence, and he was looking out into the darkness, and I just sat there and watched him. And as I watched him, I felt hope slipping away. And I sank into despair. Now, if you think using hope wrong and bringing a visit from karma is bad, try abandoning hope and turning to despair and see what happens to you then. Because my brother, he noticed me staring at him, and he reached over into the compartment of his RV. He lives in this RV camp park right next to a casino there in Vegas. So he reached over into this little compartment, he pulled out this paper bag, and he handed it to me, and he said, "Here, let's go ahead and walk up to the RV park office." And I asked him, "What's in the bag?" He said, "Fireworks." So I said, "What's the fireworks for?" And he said, "Celebrating." Well, I thought about that for a minute, and I finally asked him, "What are we celebrating?" He replied, "We're celebrating you being here." Well, I began to hope. I thought, wow, I hope I don't get arrested. And if I do get arrested, I sure hope my wife doesn't find out. So hope had very much returned in that moment. He told me he had the fireworks for more than 10 years, and he didn't even know if they would work. He set a few of them up on this big rock that he had out there, and he set the bag down. And he started lighting them. He lit like 3 of them right in a row. Well, they weren't stable, and as they started going off, one of them fell over, and it shot everything right at that paper bag. And that paper bag just caught on fire because it's really dry out there in the desert. Next thing you know, we had bottle rockets and sparks flying everywhere. This rock was on fire. I was sitting there hoping, I sure hope I don't catch on fire myself. Well, we ran from the scene of our celebration, and we laughed and laughed and laughed. And it was just like old times. Well, I left Vegas a few days later, and when I left, he hugged me and he told me I was the worst driver he had ever seen, and that he loves me. He called me the other day, and he sounded really good. He was happy, and he sounded a lot like his old self. And I couldn't help but think that this is what I was hoping for. These moments mean a lot to me, and I hope there are more. So as we each continue our journey, I hope you find peace and comfort and strength. Stay safe in your travels and journey with hope. Do not give in to despair, for where there is life, there is hope, even if that hope is only a tiny spark in a paper bag. So share your stories of life and share your stories of hope. Remember those whose journeys have come to an end, and in their memories and stories find hope for your own journeys. I think I'm going to call my brother this afternoon. I hope he's doing well, and maybe I can get out to Vegas to see him soon. I sure hope he has more fireworks.